Welcome to our second quarter update for the QOZ fund. I'm Dave Carter with Greenleaf, and I'm pretty sure COVID-19 dominated every kind of news or update or anything for the whole second quarter. It altered the landscape of business pretty quickly and dramatically, and we certainly had many impacts throughout our operating model, both short and long term. Short-term questions more around, are people going to pay their rent? Are people ever going to use an office again? Or are we homeschooling our kids indefinitely? Long-term impacts or long-term questions were around space utilization. How are people going to use things, and what's the geography where people are going to occupy these spaces? But in the QOZ fund, starting off Q2, maybe a benefit, we had pretty low occupancy across all of our properties, sub 40%, both in the residential and the office side, which oddly enough was a positive for us. So in Q2, we saw substantial revenue growth. We actually had our best revenue quarter ever in our QOZ fund. In our office properties, we were able to shift our renovation plans to have a more usable post-COVID operating platform. And what that means is we took office spaces, and instead of having like one main door that went to all the office suites, now we have office suites that have multiple entrances. We also have office suites that have individual stall bathrooms. So instead of walking into a bathroom and you may see a couple bathroom stalls, we now have a main door that goes into a bathroom with a hand washing station and a sink and everything in one enclosed unit. So you're really eliminating those spots where multiple people pass each other. On the apartment side, we were still able to operate by doing virtual tours, virtual leases, and execution of a lease up. And within our apartment portfolio, we had a lot of properties that came online with unit turns, and we were able to lease them up. So while there were lots of changes, they weren't necessarily bad in how we operate, and we were able to learn from those, adapt, and not only grow our occupancy, but grow our revenue during the quarter as well. So on the fund structure itself, we did not add any properties in the second quarter. If you recall, our last acquisition was the 1500 North Grand property in Charlotte. We closed that at the end of March of Q1. We do not plan to add anything else to this fund either until we finish a stabilization, do a refinance, and at that point, if we have some free cash flow, we'll look to reinvest that into properties. If we do find another property, we would set up a new QOZ fund, 2020 QOZ Fund 1 as well. All right, now we're going to take a look at revenue, one of the most important things. Let's see how revenue is doing. Okay, on the revenue side, first quarter of 2020 was our low point. That was the lowest revenue we had for the whole fund. So there's really only one way to go, and that was up from there. Since we had additional units in the residential side come online, we boosted our Q2 revenue 70% over Q1. As you can see in the chart here, the apartment revenue really grew. On the office side, though, we had a slight reduction. We went from $212,000 in the first quarter to $203,000 in the second quarter. What really happened there was at the station property that's located in Norcross, Georgia, we had some of our smaller tenants that they didn't make it through the whole COVID-19 component, and they either had deferred rent or they were not able to pay the rent for the second quarter, and that's where we saw the drop. But overall, if you put those two together, we had a revenue gain of 22% for the quarter, which we are super excited about considering everything that's going on in the economy. That's a positive note for us. Okay, now let's kick into occupancy, really foreshadowed by what our revenue numbers were, but we're at 58% occupancy in apartments and 32% in office. On the residential side, our biggest gains were at the FAIRWAY apartment community. We're at 97% now, so we're essentially full. In the Grove, which is in Greenville, South Carolina, we hit 30%, which is up from 18% in the first quarter. So we project the Grove to continue to gain occupancy. One, we have more units coming online. We're renting 2 to 4 units a week there. On the commercial side, we did lose a few of our smaller tenants at the station. These were either leases expiring or people that didn't make it through the COVID-19 shutdown for a couple weeks. But we do plan to stay at this 32% occupancy level in commercial, as we don't have any new space coming online right now that's kind of post-COVID ready. We project that happening in the third quarter and really leasing up in the fourth quarter there. Now let's take a look at our overall timeline on these projects. In this chart, you can see the start of our QOZ fund in January of 2019. 540 days later, or 6 quarters, we are finally hitting stabilization on the FAIRWAY apartment project, and you can see the other projects are aiming to complete physical improvements by the second quarter of 2021. After that, we have a few more months of lease up and stabilization, and ultimately feel like we will be done with all 6 renovation, stabilization, and refinance projects heading into 2022. Let's see how all the individual projects are going, starting with FAIRWAY. Our first QOZ deal is FAIRWAY Apartments. And after 14 months of renovation and leasing, FAIRWAY became our first community to reach stabilization. We finished all interior and exterior scheduled improvements, our gates working great, and our units are occupied. We finished the quarter with 97% occupancy in June. We expect this to remain strong through the third quarter and will be in position to refinance the property with Freddie Mac in September. Retention is our guide for both revenues and expense planning as we go forwards. And in the second quarter, we achieved 50% retention. This is our highest yet on the property, and we are seeing residents renew while also being able to gain new residents. On the revenue side, we have adjusted our renewals due to COVID-19 with $0 increases, while our rental rates have remained the same. We are hitting our pro forma numbers here and are projecting stable revenue over the next 2 quarters. As COVID-19 changes and impacts are assessed in the long term, we will revisit our rental rates. FAIRWAY also has a unique aspect of its community farm, and through this program, we have obtained 3 community grants. This has enabled us to build our pavilion, adding funding for our playground, and plans to convert the interior courtyard to more garden space. We have seen a positive environment created from our initiatives across this property and are eager to see the community continue to grow. The next project is The Grove. We are in month 16 of our renovation plans, and we hit 30% occupancy here in the second quarter, up from 18% in Q1. To accomplish this occupancy growth during a pandemic, we had to lower our rental rates off the pro forma estimates by roughly 18%. We are continuing our building by building interior and exterior improvements across the property. We have 9 buildings completed with 54 units, 2 buildings that are pending CO, and 6 buildings that have holdover residents that we are working to transition. Overall, we are on track with our 24-month turnaround plan. This has not been without challenges, though. The tenant transitions have taken longer than expected. We have continually been behind on permits and renovations as we face new challenges with moving renters and transitioning tenants. Additionally, even on the second and third round of unit turns, where we typically are learning what makes the unit turns faster, we're running into new hurdles with utility and electrical issues. This is hurting our cash flow with lower than projected occupancy, and realistically, we'll need our full 24 months to hit the turnaround. Although we are on track with our timeline, it feels much more challenging with such an occupancy drop in the middle of the renovation project. Right now, we are staying focused on turning units and gaining occupancy on a week-by-week basis to hit our goals. After 10 months, the outside of Heritage Apartments has not lost its original patina. It still looks very much like a construction site. But we are chugging away on the interiors, our pallets of paint have finally arrived, and we are ready to paint. Here's what a pre-painted kitchen looks like. We continued our consistent theme from previous projects, utilizing the bricks backsplash. Onto a unit that is in progress, and you can see we painted the brick colors a consistent theme, and we've applied primer and 3 layers of paint to ensure an even coverage throughout the units. Once painting is finished, we will also refinish the hardwood floors. We plan to have our first interiors finished in early Q3, followed by exterior improvements to porches, parking lots, and landscaping at the end of Q3. Our project is on track, both with timelines and budgets, and should have first occupancy in Q4 with stabilization in Q1 of 2021, slightly ahead of our 24-month schedule. We have been banging away at the station. Our new paint scheme looks fantastic and has been well received by our existing tenants. Additionally, we've updated building numbers, signage, and landscaping throughout. We do have 2 remaining buildings to paint in Q3. These last 2 buildings had their exterior siding replaced before we purchased the property, so we didn't have to do any extra work here, and we saved them for last. As we wrap up the exteriors, we have 3 interior spaces that we're working to renovate. These 3 spaces make up 24,000 square feet and are roughly 20% of the complex's footprint. Once we finish these, we will be completed with our CapEx. Our total improvement spend here has been on budget throughout the process, and we have been able to maintain occupancy as well. As we walk through the space here, you can see numerous entrances, set bathroom locations, and the ability for a prospective tenant to make their own walled floor plan. Additionally, we have renovated the executive office suites. Here, we updated the floor, repainted everything, and upgraded the doors and fixtures. On the leasing front, we have leased 2 of the small office footprints at rental rates above the $18 per foot targets, hitting mid-20s in some cases. We have not successfully leased one of the renovated interior spaces yet. They're also not complete, but we continue to work with local brokers on these. We feel that our single floor, multiple entrance layouts will be attractive to businesses looking for better post-coronavirus fit. As a business strategy, we will be leasing the sub 500 square foot spaces internally while partnering with leasing brokers for the spaces above this size. We are optimistic, even in the face of the current environment, that our unique product with customized floor plans, multiple entrances to each suite, and a spread out campus in a suburban location will be very desirable.
Deal number 5 is the Lupton, built in 1908 and located in the heart of Chattanooga. We completed the rough demo back in Q1 and lastly removed the old freight elevator and roof chiller. This was a roughly 10-ton metal contraption that our guys cut apart by hand to get off the building. Now we have spacious floor plans that show off the original wood beams and brick walls on every floor. We submitted our interior plans to the city of Chattanooga in May and completed the full permitting review process. We're kicking off Q3 with full plan approval and permits in hand. Our first steps in the rebuilding process are to make the foundation improvements for the new stairwell that will fit into our old elevator shaft. While in the basement, we will also be adding new sewer connections and lines to accommodate increased capacity. Once these steps are completed, we will start replacing about 20% of the floor joists and beams within the structure. We're going back with both wood and steel beams to keep the old warehouse look, and we'll be sure to get plenty of videos of the process. As we begin this interior process, we will also begin our leasing efforts, first with creating our interior marketing materials with our architecture firm. We will then utilize our local leasing brokers that we have worked with on our other Chattanooga properties to start showcasing the property. Overall, progress is going very smoothly, and we are excited about the look and the feel of the project. The last deal in our QOZ fund is the 1500 North Graham property that we purchased in March of this year. We're off to the races here. Our interior and exterior demo will be completed in July. This space required minimal work as it was already a very open layout, so we just had to knock down some old walls. Here we are planning 5 office suites that are between 3,000 and 5,000 square foot each. These offices will have numerous post-COVID operational enhancements, things such as hand washing stations, individual private bathrooms, individual entrances, and even multiple entrances per suite. Overall, we plan to finish our renovations by the end of 2020, making one of our fastest physical renovation projects in our 12-year history. This aggressive timeline and execution shows our continued improvement in the commercial renovation space. However, this timeline does have risks, and the biggest one right now is parking. We need 12 additional parking spots that you can see on the site plan here. We've been working 2 angles here. One, redesigning the parking layout with the permit office. The other is negotiating with our 3 neighbors to see if we can simply lease some parking spaces. 2 of these neighbors have declined, and one has been a little bit of a challenge to get a commitment from, but we're trying to make a deal. Our last resort would be applying for a variance or potential rezone of the space. This would be both costly and add months to the timeline. However, we're still keeping it open as a last resort if needed. On a leasing front, we are working with Charlotte-based brokerages here to lease the space. We won't be doing this internally. This project has been moving quickly since the very first day, and we are excited to see the interiors taking shape here in Q3.